In recent years, it's become apparent that the collapse of certain nations is doomed, with the rise of second and third world countries bringing about the ultimate demise of first world leaders. And I'm not talking about the Western world. Despite America and the UK having their faults, they are not the main topic of geoeconomic crashes nowadays. That title is held by another one of the world's superpowers, China. Being notorious for their authoritarian laws and extremist views, it's probably no surprise to tell you that they have been telling a monumental lie for the best part of a decade. Revered as a miracle nation, pulling some of the most incredible cities from the ground and owning basically any and all manufacturing around the world, the nation is cowardly suppressing a dark truth they don't want to admit. China is in the midst of the largest collapse in recent history, with statistics suggesting their economy is actually 50% smaller than we thought. But why? Well, it's not like this is anything new. China has been lying about their GDP for decades, talking about how much they make is a hallmark in making them a superpower they are today. Money talks, and China being in the race for the largest economy in the world will make them more respected and give them more opportunities. Even if it means lying by a few percent every year, people won't really be able to prove them wrong. All they care about is the size of the number in order to attract business from other companies and countries. A nation once coined as the world's next leader has been on a crutch for the last 3 years, and their situation is only going to get worse. The state of their economy may be an essay to suppress, but the repercussions of such a revelation definitely can't, and it's showing. The latest data on their industry exports are showing an all-time drop, with their internal and external trade falling through the floor. It's annihilating their industry complex in real time. Now, you might be wondering why this is news to you, why this isn't plastered over the front page of every newspaper in the world, and the answer is sadly rather simple. Our media and corporations have been bought by Chinese capital, and they sing to their tune, drowning out any discerning words regarding China. Thankfully though, there is a solution here, one I've created in the name of Stoic Markets, my free email newsletter dedicated to revealing to you the truth about the financial markets with no censorship whatsoever, but more on that later. Recently, China's trade profits dropped 8% in April and led to a rising degree of concern with neighboring trade partners, and it only gets worse from here. The industrial complex is the heartbeat of the Chinese economy. With it not firing at full steam, they are set for an inevitable crash in every facet across the country. Factories are dropping production at an unattainable rate, which is limiting their biggest exports across the world. Youth unemployment is soaring at an all-time high, and the overall profits within the country have been dropping by 20%, so its collapse has become almost an inevitability. But it's not only exports. With other countries seeing the demise of China, they are slowly beginning to halt imports along with those exports, cutting off all ties with the industrial giant altogether. Businesses and countries alike are looking out for themselves and don't want to be caught in the cataclysm that will occur on China's current course. And there's good reason for doing so. Even their biggest sector, steel production, an economy within an economy, which they basically monopolize at a stake of 1 billion tons a year and 54% of global production, is also on the downfall, with Chinese steel prices hitting new all-time lows 3 years running. The destination is set and the inevitable seems apparent, but with their biggest sector falling in real time comes another problem. While steel profits go down, unemployment goes up, and that is the case in China at the moment. And while the trend does suggest that unemployment has gone down from 5.8% to 5.3%, don't let that number fool you. This may be good in the eyes of China, but in the scope of the world, it's nothing to be proud of. Remember, statistics don't lie, but statisticians do, and China is filled with corrupt officials forging documents trying to secure their own future, and independent data suggests China's unemployment data is getting worse, not better. The influx of issues has eventually compounded and led to a pretty devastating development in the eyes of China, as their US giant partner Vanguard has begun splitting ways with the nation since early 2021, and with it a staggering $3.7 trillion is leaving. The largest figures in the Western world are ditching China, leading to a lot of noise and, more importantly, a lot of followers in suit. Vanguard is shutting its main Shanghai office and exiting from a joint venture with Ant Group, as confirmed by 5 separate sources. Reportedly, these moves will end its 6-year presence in the world's second largest economy, and when corporations as large as Vanguard are leaving China, it's going to start turning heads and force suit in a lot of other companies. JP Morgan's CEO Jamie Dimon thinks what the USA is doing, placing import bans on Chinese chips and starting a trade war with the nation, is completely the right thing to do, as he praises the Biden administration frustration and pushes for more moves against them. And honestly, he's right. Why hold on to strings with a nation that's sinking, let alone keep doing business with them when it's obvious that even their biggest sectors are beginning to fall apart, and China clearly wants to see the US collapse as well. And once again, we have to ask ourselves a simple question. Can the media be trusted to tell us the truth when it comes to China? Can we trust YouTube to promote honest narratives when they demonize and demonetize anyone that tries to speak out against the CCP? I've had countless videos banned and deleted for committing the cardinal sin of disagreeing with that Chinese dictatorship, so YouTube's allegiance ought to be perfectly clear. Thankfully though, there is a solid real alternative in the form of my newsletter Stoic Markets. It's dedicated to exposing the truth about finance and investing and is 100% free, both in cost to you and from censorship. Google and big tech and the mainstream media, they have no control over my words there, even if they would love to keep me silent. So if you're tired of being lied to, if you want to know the whole truth and want to ensure you know exactly what you need to know so your investments can perform best for you, then join Stoic Markets with the link down below, and you can always unsub anytime, no questions asked. China has also been provoked for their increase in market misery and repeating oil slumps. With each route in their infrastructure slowly decaying, it's causing a ripple effect across the entire nation and leading those that are not necessarily in peril to accept the same fate. No matter how good the state of the food industry is in China, if the imports and exports become affected, everyone will become subject to the ramifications. This isn't a surprise. It's not as if the US and China haven't been having feud among every and all battlefields throughout the last 5 years, the latest being the tech war between the two giants, the aforementioned, are all a trailer to the inevitable deglobalization that is on the horizon for the world. With official statements coming in at 1.4 billion, sources suggest it could be up to 20% smaller than that. Supposedly there's power in numbers, but lying about those numbers doesn't solve China's population crisis. And how they have put themselves in a position where they were unable to come clean. Maintaining a lie for 30 years may have its benefits in the short term, but their fate has come back to bite them in the arse. Openly admitting their population numbers are a lie would be the last straw on the camel's back and would likely cause them to lose any and all goodwill they hold with other nations. And then to top even that off, they are already admitting that it's a fact their population is decreasing, not growing. Combine that with the demographic catastrophe from the back end of their one-child policy, and you have an aging society that is dying faster than the youth can repopulate it. And with unemployment on the rise and the cost of living skyrocketing, men and women are unable to afford children and thus are having them later and later. What's more is that while they are fighting two battles, the Chinese government is also in the midst of a catastrophic housing collapse. But according to Lai Shu, there are as many as $30 billion property developers in China that have already defaulted on their debt and gone bankrupt. Of the largest 10 developers in the entire world, 4 of them are Chinese, and 3 of those have already defaulted and gone bankrupt, including the 2 largest property developers in the entire world, Evergrande and Sunac. The real issue is that China's economy is entirely based on construction and not manufacturing, as most people believe. The old Chinese adage states that to increase GDP by $1 trillion, all you need to do is build $1 trillion bridge to nowhere. And now without these developers and without this industry, over 100 million jobs will disappear and China's growth will reverse in an instant. Over 2022, a mortgage boycott spread across China, and still to this day it is growing steam and proving unavoidable for the powers that be. Suddenly, after months of trying to bring the housing market down to bear, the CCP realized they had screwed it all up. Because of this, the Chinese money printers have been on full acceleration mode with zero pit stops. Fixing this issue, though, is beyond the possibilities of carefully tiptoeing around it. The only method available to them is to print money in the hope of equalizing the damage already done. But of course, as history shows, this is nothing more than a plaster on a wound. Eventually, it's going to run its course and become one of the biggest crashes in recent times. As much as I'd love to go more in depth on this, YouTube has a soft spot for China, so the chances of this video being flagged out or taken down are already incredibly high. I have released countless videos on China before, and for some reason, time after time, YouTube chooses to defend them and attack me. Even saying the word Uyghur is probably enough to ensure this video never earns me a penny, or maybe Hong Kong as well, but thankfully there is a solution. My email newsletter Stoic Markets is designed from the ground up to be immune from censorship, so no matter how bad things get, no matter how authoritarian YouTube chooses to behave, and no matter how many crimes against humanity they try to hide, my email newsletter newsletter Stoic Markets will be able to publish the truth. If you're tired of being lied to, you know the mainstream media and the elites don't want you to know what's really going on, then click the link down below and join Stoic Markets for free, and you can always unsub anytime, no questions asked. All in all, facing a population crisis, housing crisis, construction crisis, inflation crisis on top of an international trade crisis, I think it's safe to say that China's rise to the top is coming to a very quick stop, and in fact is about to go very south. Ultimately, the state of the country on all fronts is something to be on top of. Despite their incoming downfall, China are still the largest manufacturers in the world and quite possibly the most important nation on earth when it comes to imports and exports. It's so important we stay on the right side of the news because the Matrix will never report on this kind of stuff in order to keep the general population uneducated and unable to prepare. But if you want to know exactly what's going on, I reveal all constantly on my email newsletter, so click the link down below to join for free, or if you want to see how BlackRock is teetering on collapse as well, watch this video here.